director. I'm also a geologist. I work with various AIM private companies, and I'm also a consultant with the SRK group. I've been involved with Panther Metals since the conception of the idea of taking a palm oil business from Malaysia and restructuring it to focus on the exploration sector. Obviously, we're all here because we know about exploration, and we know that you have to, at the beginning, you just have to go where the rocks are. Most of the deposits in the world that were easy to find in safe jurisdictions have been found. Leadenhall Street, where we're sitting now, used to be the centre of the North England lead industry. That's all gone now. We went over to Africa as British people, down to Australia, and over to Canada, and out the T's basically went out in front of us. Since the beginning of Panther, we decided that we were going to try and concentrate our efforts on safe jurisdictions where there was a real possibility of creating value. So that's how we came to be in Canada. Canada, as you can see, is the #1 ranked mining investment attractive country, according to the Fraser Institute. The Fraser Institute runs a survey every year with top executives and decision makers in the mining industry to gauge their appetite for risk and jurisdiction. So the sorts of questions they ask is, ideally where would you be, and what's your experience of working in the various countries? And as you can see, Canada's come on top, and the other country which we decided to focus on from the very beginning, Australia, is #2. I won't read out here. You can see why Canada's rated up high there. It's a democratic jurisdiction. It's also well endowed in minerals. So now, kind of coming into Canada itself, the Fraser Institute has also split up the country by province. You can see that ranked #1 there is Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan is a destination for people interested in uranium, potash and salt. 2 is Quebec. Quebec is really prospective for base metals, for gold, for nickel, French speaking. We're interested in that area. #3 is Ontario. Ontario is where we've got our first project, the Bear Lake project. So Ontario is Canada's most prolific mining destination. There's currently 38 active mines there. It's the largest producer of gold and nickel in Canada. It's got over, I think, over 25,000 people employed directly in the mining industry, and probably 4 times that in services around it. So it has a great network, and it's a great place to actually start in this game. It's worth saying as well that they've also recently converted what was an outdated staking system to an electronic registration system, which means that we can actually go and file for land packages, submit our requests for work, and submit our reports all online, which makes it easier to do, given that we're not in Canada physically. Gone the right way. Yeah, so Big Bear location. So here we've got Ontario. This is where our license is. We'll zoom in. Okay, so this is the Bear Lake. So we're fundamentally in the right location. We are on the eastern end of the Schreiber Hemlo greenstone belt. I'll talk a little bit about what greenstone belts are in a minute. So we're on the western end. On the opposite end, about 95 kilometres away, sits Barrick's Hemlo mine. To date, that has produced over 22 million ounces of gold. It's still ongoing. Also, a little bit closer to us, along that same trend, Noranda had their Golden Giant mine. That closed in 2006, but was in operation from the mid-80s through to that time, and that produced over 6 million ounces of gold. A little bit closer to home, we've got a joint venture between GTA and Balmoral Resources. There are about 10 kilometres in this direction. They have inferred NI 43-101 compliant resource of 0.8 million ounces and 0.39 million ounces on indicated. They just put out a drill release on the end of February, 124 metres at 1 gram a tonne. Obviously, you know, they're compositing that slightly strangely, but it's still coming out at over 11 metres at 6 metres or so. So we've got real economic intersections in the vicinity. Their other project, which is Duck Lake, which is just by here, they've put out release on that. They have 5 metres at just under 6 grams per tonne as well. That's all on gold. Just to the north up here, we've got an ASX listed company, which is Superior Lakes. They have actually got the rights to a mine that went, a zinc mine, which went into, which was mothballed because of the low zinc price. But they're currently trying to get that back up and running. They've got a resource there of 2.17 million tonnes at 17.7% zinc, which makes that Canada's highest grade zinc deposit at the moment. They're quite set on actually getting that into production. Now, very interestingly, they hold the ground immediately that side of us and around here. And they've put out news releases saying that they're holding that ground because they think it is prospective for zinc. Okay, so giving you a little bit of history, Darren's touched on it, but a little bit of history on how we came to be at the Big Bear project. So we'd already decided we liked Canada and we liked Australia. We put out feelers into our network, and we're introduced to a group of prospectors who have this ground on this particular greenstone belt. So we met them, initially started talks with them last summer, and then as Darren said, we closed in early September. What attracted us to this project was that although it's early stage, there has been some work there previously. So the prospectors had had an earn-in agreement with a Canadian junior back in 2010-2011. They had conducted a geochemical survey and a ground mag survey on, say, about a quarter or so of the license area, and they had discovered some really interesting anomalies. But what they hadn't managed to do before they ran out of money and subsequently kind of folded out of it was join the dots. So we've got the initial kind of targets here, but no one has actually gone back. What happened when they ran out of money? It reverted to the prospectors, and then the prospectors sat on it for a while, and then they came and spoke to us. So you can see the results there, those first ones in those various areas. Those were generated by that work and some work intermediate. The historical bulk sampling was at a trial mine site, Schreiber Pyramid Mine, which is in the bottom of our area. and that was worked between the wars by local people. At the end of that time, a bigger company came in and took a bulk sample, and as you can see, they got 150 tonnes there at 17.6 grams per tonne. And also, we've got within our area, we've got historical drill intersections. They're from around the late 1960s or so, when there was regional exploration for the zinc and copper, which that work was all timed in with the discovery up at Pitt Lake that the Australians are trying to work with at the moment. So, as Darren said, we went over to the site in early October. We met with various stakeholders there, with contractors, and we were there mainly to form a view on what work we were going to undertake. We were aware that there were certain there was a certain amount of work that we had to do before the spring came. That was due because the prospectors that had the licenses before us hadn't fulfilled their needs. So we were kind of keen to get off to the right start and do some work before the snow came. So we went out there and we planned an orientation program. We managed to get a team of guys out there in early November, just before the snow came. And we set up 5 orientation grids over areas of interest that had been delineated from that historical work. We conducted 150 soil samples, and we took 40 rock samples. And the rock samples were from outcropping quartz veins and rocks that looked interesting. I should say that the lay of the land here is thick forest, undulating sort of peaks and bogs in the valleys, and rocky crags sort of in between. One of the most interesting things that we've got about this particular area is this 18 grams per tonne soil anomaly. That hasn't been followed up yet, so that's going to be a target for this coming work this summer. Okay, so coming on to what we found, we got the results back in December, and we reported them in January once we'd had a chance to assimilate and interpret what was going on. We've, out of those initial 5 grids that we surveyed, we had 2 areas that returned the vein samples of 1 to 5 grams per tonne, and we had 4 areas that were actually returning samples above 5 grams per tonne. And interestingly, on an area that we haven't initially outlined during our first visit, prospectors discovered this vein, 50 metres exposed, and they took samples at either end of it, and as you can see, we've got pretty exceptional results there. So that will factor into the work that we're planning this year. Okay, which brings us on to here. So this just gives you a bit of an overview of that was a soil grid that was originally taken in 2010, 2011. Down this right bottom end, this is the work and here, 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 and here. These are the grids that we had set up and completed in November. And so, off the back of that, we've identified areas that we want to follow up on. This is the Little Bear area. This is the Scriber Pyramid area with that, this point here is where that 150 bulk sample was taken. These 2 points here relate to this interpreted vein, where we've got the 100 grams per tonne samples that we just collected in November. And then this is the Big Bear area, which now, apart from the work that we've done in November, has never been explored. As far as we can see from the historical records, no one has ever touched this ground before. back on the geology side, we are on the greenstone belt. So what you can see in here is greenstone. And apologies to any geologists in the room, but I'll just give you a little overview on what greenstone is. So greenstone is the remnants of ancient volcanoes and associated sedimentary basins intruded by granite batholiths that were situated in places that might have once upon a time been like, if you can imagine where Japan is now. You've got places where there's subduction, and then there's volcanoes coming up through the sea, and you've got basins, back arc basins behind shallow seas. This was about, in our area, we're talking about 2.5 to 3.2 billion years ago that these systems were active. Since then, they've been buried deeply down, they've been heated up, squashed and pulled, metamorphosed, and why it's called greenstone, it's because there's a lot of chloride in the mafic and ultramafic rocks that actually makes them look a bit green. So it's kind of a simple idea. But these kind of date back to a time where it's thought that the Earth was quite a lot hotter than it is today. There was a lot more circulation of metals. It's quite possible that nowadays most of the gold is in the core. When the Earth was hotter, you had bigger convection currents that were circulating those dense metals a lot more than it is today, and so that's possibly a reason why these greenstone belts are more endowed with gold. And it's worth saying that, as far as we know, there's no comparative sort of geological environment today. So if you're looking for this type of mineralisation, you need to go and find the greenstone belts, and there's lots of them in Ontario. So just to finish off, we have now got a permit to undertake work in the larger Big Bear area. That will allow us to do trenching, clearing, soil sampling, and drilling over the next 3 years. We have also started engaging and are in friendly conversations with the local First Nation community. I am very keen to get them involved in the work going forward. From the onset, I think it's important that exploration companies start off on the right foot. So we're very conscious of that. So what we're planning to do as soon as the snow melts, which will be around May time, is get back on the ground. We've got soil geochemical grid samples over those larger areas that we just identified here. So I want to concentrate on these areas. We'll do ground geophysics as well. We'll do trenching on the anomalies, and with the objective of defining drill-ready targets. We're also keen to look at new technology. There are quite a few people now using drones to collect airborne geophysics very cost effectively compared to fixed wing or heli-borne systems. So we'll see if we can utilise that, and that should actually help fast track the work we're doing. And I'll pass back you to Darren to talk about Aussie.
Yeah, okay.